Hello, this is Person-Centered Healing. My name is Leigh. This is part of the tour. I'm going to talk about boundaries this evening. Super excited. I love that topic. So the last two videos, embodied belonging. Hi, thanks for joining. If you have any questions or comments, you're welcome to put them in the comment. The last two videos were embodied belonging and self-abandonment and self-connection. So a talk about boundaries relates, of course, to both of those things. So I have a lot to share, actually, and I like to make little lists so I can keep somewhat on a line of thinking. So I think I'm actually going to share some pictures tonight, too. So the intro, I'm just going to name that I see creating healthy boundaries as an embodied relational practice. So what I mean by that is hi, thanks for joining. When I create healthy boundaries or when I practice creating boundaries, I get in touch with my body. I connect with myself and especially my body. So part of that is knowing what I need and want. That's a huge part of boundaries, in my opinion. And it's relational. So my boundaries are yes, no, and often, sometimes I have boundaries with myself, but it's also, boundaries with others, with environments, with timelines. Boundaries can be an action aligned with inner truth. And again, I'm going to say wants and needs. So in order to know what my truth is, connecting with body, connecting with feeling, connecting with myself, usually lower body energy, wants and needs, super important. So action would be, yes, I'm going to do that. No, I'm not going to do that, or, between or beyond. Boundaries can be essential for maintaining self-connection. So I can establish a really beautiful connection with myself and go off into the world without boundaries and have a difficult time maintaining that connection with myself. So that's a beautiful part of boundaries for all of us to remember, because essentially we want to share our true selves with one another, and that's, in my opinion, that's an ideal. So in order to do that, boundaries are important. I think of boundaries as an experiential learning process. So, hi, thanks for joining. I'm going to wave at all of you. Thanks for being here. So, experiential learning process. This is an ongoing learning experiential process. It's not a one-time occasion or a one-time figuring something out. I mean, sometimes a certain boundary can last throughout time for a long time, I think. But I love to think of it as experiential learning and an ongoing process, because we can always refine our boundaries. And boundaries, sometimes, boundaries can be, even the word boundary, I've had people reflect to me, I've never heard someone talk about boundaries so much. And, my guess is maybe they don't have boundaries. They don't feel like they need boundaries, or they don't understand boundaries. But I think people sometimes have reflected to me that they are stressed out by boundaries. And I think boundaries can get sort of a bad reputation, or just, a dishonorable reputation, when really they're awesome. And when we make a boundary with something or someone, essentially it's like refining the relationship to make it more functional. That's how I see it. So it's actually an awesome tool. So then I'm going to share some pictures. Oh, now I don't even know if I can. I think they took that feature away. So let's see if I can remember the slides. I'm going to be posting them. So on boundaries are a discovery process. So it's like we all get to discover what our boundary needs are. One of the slides says your no, K-N-O-W, comes before your no and your yes, which I love that, because that also connects to like third chakra intuitive knowing, clear knowing, clear cognizance. So when we get down into that third chakra, that's power, balanced power, that's fire. So that's like an awesome part of boundaries. That's sometimes it can be like when we're in touch with that solar plexus balanced power, we're able to really get in touch with our own energy, our usness, my me-ness. And so knowing, right? So embodied practice, when I come down into my body, when I take the time, when I slow down to really check in, what is my yes? What is my no? Do I even know? How about I know what my yes and no is before I actually answer someone? So in our world, I think there's this like unspoken demand sometimes that I have found. It might just be my own life path, but where if someone asks you something, there's like this need to know really soon. And timeline is important. Patience is a huge part of boundaries and honoring boundaries. Patience is a huge part of self-authority. No, saying no is as beautiful as saying yes. So yeah, I'm definitely excited about saying no when I want to say no. And I think the journey of learning grace and patience is also a process. I had one of my closest friends from long ago, she had shared with me when she first learned how to start making boundaries that she slammed a lot of doors. And we always laugh together about it because it takes practice. It takes, enormous practice for me, especially with push-pull energy from people, because that's where my wounding is. So if someone comes at me with a real strong push-pull energy, it's extremely uncomfortable, sometimes a little painful for me to stand in my no. So I want to name that it can be extremely activating. And everybody has their own, storyline and perceptions and beliefs that they work with. So it might not be exactly what I just said. The other next slide is trust. So trust, right? When we make boundaries, there's an enormous opportunity to deepen trust with ourselves. So if I'm coming into my body and I'm clearly knowing my yes and my no, and then I go ahead and share that, trust is important, especially if there's push-pull energy. So to stay rooted in trusting what we know, what I know for myself, for example. And then the final slide is be with what comes in the process, which to me, what that means, why I wrote that there, is because it's relational. Boundaries, honoring and acting on truth in a boundary way is relational. So be with what comes in the process is my way of encouraging us all to be present with how people respond or they might react, especially if we're changing and growing and maybe taking back some of ourselves or saying no to doing things that we did in the past. So I want to name that it's such an exciting journey to deepen one's connection with one's truth, and then to step a little further and refine boundaries. It can unearth a lot. It can seem destabilizing. So it's really, that's why it's just like I want to honor boundaries. And it's for me, I just see boundaries as an on forever in my life, in this lifetime, and probably beyond in other lifetimes, just an ongoing practice. Thanks for being here. I'm so excited to share about this. I have one more PDF, so it'll probably be, 10 more minutes or something. I'm gonna just loosely talk about honoring boundaries, and this portion of things is inspired by Pia Melody, who I don't know if any of you are familiar with, but to me, she's the queen of self-esteem, boundaries, and codependency work. And you can find some of her videos on YouTube. I definitely consider her one of my teachers. So honoring boundaries. So I kind of think of it too as being who we are honestly is a birthright. And how about that? Being who I am honestly is me saying no sometimes. And me in that process saying yes to myself. So saying no to someone or something, has its yes side. What am I saying yes to when I'm saying no to something? And also giving myself permission to do that. And I encourage everybody to give themselves permission to say no, and to say yes to something else. And I didn't name this in the beginning, but this entire talk is just a casual share. It's so people can get to know me as a person and a healing practitioner. It's not meant to replace a one-on-one healing session with a qualified healthcare professional or a group setting. So I'm just going to go on here and name that getting in touch with our energy body. That's another part of the embodied relational tool of boundaries. So there's a really beautiful connection to self-responsibility and with boundaries. And it's really beautiful because I think that when we focus on having boundaries that come from our truth, we are able to respond instead of react. And for anyone who has grown through the process of reacting or wanting to move more into being able to respond instead of react, these are all great tools and areas of focus. So energy management, how do you charge? How do you discharge? How do you know when you need to discharge or charge up your energy body? Connecting with your center, being able to ground, and essentially really take care of your nervous system. So if we're in a state of fight, flight, or freeze, we're in a defended state, which makes it very difficult, if not impossible, to integrate our experience or connect with other people. So really taking care of ourselves in that way and using boundaries so that we can stay connected to that practice and caring for ourselves on that level. So again, this is inspired by Pia Mellody, and what's healthy boundaries, I would say, from her guidance, they're a mixture of protection and vulnerability. So when I think about that, I think, I just perceive something that I want. Being protected so that I'm able to be vulnerable sounds like an environment in which I could thrive and also have a really nice experience relating with others in a relationship that had those types of boundaries. Four different examples of boundaries, right? So there's potentially unlimited examples, but I'm just going to name 4. Protected and vulnerable, so it's like an intact boundary system. No boundaries, so just no protection, just no boundaries whatsoever. Partial protection, maybe a damaged boundary system. I can really relate to that one, and not knowing how to make boundaries and not knowing how to protect myself, not knowing how to say no. So the 4th one is walls instead of boundaries, just like total protection, but no vulnerability, no closeness, no connection. So the purpose of boundaries really is, and this is according to Pia Mellody, is to keep people from coming into our space. And it's also to keep us from going into someone else's space in some capacity. And boundaries also support us in really like knowing and staying connected to ourselves, and in that process being aware of who we are and who other people are. So there's a really beautiful interdependence that can come from healthy boundaries, as opposed to an example of like merging energy or avoidant energy, or like shut down, not connecting, parallel play kind of energy. And then the other thing I love about boundaries that I learned from Pia is boundaries remind us that the feelings, behaviors, and attitudes of others are separate from our own. And we are not responsible for one another's feelings. We are responsible for our own feelings. And that includes thoughts too. I'm not responsible for how other people think and how those thoughts they think cause them to feel. I am, however, responsible for the thoughts that I think and how those thoughts cause me to feel. So yeah, there's so much self-responsibility involved in healthy boundaries and being responsible for our own thoughts and how those thoughts cause us to feel. I kind of just said that. Owning our own reality and letting other people have their own reality. It's stated really simple, but it's actually it's pretty profound. It's so clean. Like, I just love Pia Melody and the way she describes things because it feels like clean relations. And the joy of getting to be myself, I'll speak for myself, like the joy of having healthy boundaries with people who there's like that, it's a good flow, we understand boundaries, and I don't have to teach that person, or, I don't have to keep putting up a boundary with someone because that's exhausting. That's not even sustainable. So what I was trying to say is just the joy of being myself and really owning myself, being connected to myself and being clear about who I am and who another person is. So it's a trip. I mean, it's not a one-time thing and then it's forever that way. I think every day invites a new experience, and there's so many things that could cause confusion for a person. I'll speak for myself. Hormones, lack of sleep, a chaotic day, unexpected events, other people's moods, etc. So there's always things happening. We're always changing, and there's always an opportunity to just like connect back with ourselves and just come back into our bodies with our breath. We can take a break. We can slow down. That's self-responsibility too. So I support that for everybody, including myself, and encourage it for everyone, including myself. We can always slow down. We can always connect with self. If that's a challenge for you, if you need support, reach out to me, reach out to a therapist, a friend, a family member. Sometimes it is really essential to have a spiritual companion, whatever their job is or like whatever their relationship is to you. Sometimes it's essential to have someone for support, for connecting with self. And I really trust spirit, that spirit comes and provides for all of us, and it's all soul path. That's how I think of it. It's my Akashic experiential training. So that's pretty much all I had for today. Thank you so much for joining. It was just so lovely to have a few people join tonight. Does anyone have any questions? I welcome any questions. I love boundaries, and it's such a journey. I'm really grateful to Pia Melody, and I'm glad I could name her as a teacher. And I'm gonna thank the people in my life who pushed and pulled at me, because over time, my exhaustion and pain from relating with people in that way and not being able to make my own boundaries led me to connect deeper to myself and to learn and to read and to explore and to work with therapists and healing practitioners to learn tools and to practice. And I also want to name, if anyone is watching this that's really struggling with boundaries, there are definitely people out there who are respectful of boundaries. If you happen to be around a lot of people who aren't respecting your boundaries, there are people out there who do respect your boundaries, and it is possible to learn boundaries and to build up a practice of that. And I want to name too that we all have a unique path. There's not just a one size fits all. This was just a casual conversation, and that's that. So if anyone watching wants to learn more about what I offer, there's a link in my bio. I'm here to work one-on-one with people, and I offer transpersonal energy healing. I'm an advanced Akashic Records practitioner, so I offer a variety of Akashic healings. I'm trained in intuitive healing, and I'm currently in training with Gabor Mate and Sat Dharam in the Compassionate Inquiry program, which is incredible. So I'm grateful to all my teachers, and to those of you who came live, thank you so much. And to anyone who watches later, thank you. I'm going to hop off. May all beings experience heart, peace, love, and belonging. Thank you so much. I hope you're well. See you soon.